to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. And as always, it's my honor and pleasure to be with you here on another brand new episode of the Autoimmune Hour. Goodness sakes, we're towards the end of this year and going into the next one. We're at 400 plus episodes now, and it's just fantastic. And I continue to meet more and more thrivers. We're not about surviving here. We're about let's make the best and continue to thrive regardless of our diagnosis. A few weeks ago, I heard on a national news this two sisters who were being interviewed about an amazing thing that they're doing. And I immediately pulled over and started to grab my phone and emailed them and said, you've got to be on the show. So let me tell you what it is, because this is the true definition of thriving for me. First, let me introduce Alexa Child. She is the co-founder of Dateability. She graduated from Georgetown Law in 2015 and currently works as a public interest attorney. Through witnessing her sister's experience with disability, Alexa has become an advocate and ally for the disability community. And she is passionate about social justice, enjoys TV and film, and loves all things Halloween. I think I do too. So let's hear Alexa say hello for those of you on the audio so we can get her voice. Hi, Alexa.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for having us.
Oh, awesome. Yes, thank you. And her sister is Jacqueline Child, and Jacqueline is also the co-founder of Dateability. We'll tell you what that is in a minute. And she turned her experience with disability and chronic illness into this brand new venture, as they call it. I want to put also adventure here. And she created Dateability with their sister after years of discouraging ableist experiences on the mainstream dating apps. When she isn't managing her health, Jacqueline enjoys playing the guitar, reading, and volunteering at the local animal shelter. So welcome, Jacqueline. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Now, you guys, this is just awesome. Let's first tell the audience, my community, what is Dateability? I think the name kind of gives it away, but let's talk about what is Dateability.
Dateability is the only dating app for the disabled and chronically ill communities. We launched in October of this year, and we're really excited to be the first app like this on the market. It's a long time coming, and there was a huge gap in the market, and we're really excited to make love accessible and hopefully be the platform that fosters a bunch of relationships.
Oh, absolutely. And we all deserve love. I think that's fantastic. Now, one of the things I want to talk, it is an app, so it's on the phone, right? For some of us older non-techies.
So accessibility is very important to us, obviously. So it is on the phone, but we also have a web app version. The web app version is just the same. It's identical to the app, but you can access it on your either phone browser or your computer or desktop, laptop browser. And so that is helpful for folks who might not have a smartphone or they have mobility issues and can't use a phone. And so, we wanted to make it available to everyone. And that's one thing that differentiates us from the other apps that are only available on iPhones, Androids through the app stores.
Right. Yeah. And I love that about it. You guys have put a lot of thought into this as well. And I love that it's a free app. At least when I checked it out, it's still free, right?
Yeah, it is free. There will always be a free version. We are currently drafting up expansion plans to expand geographically, and that would include also a subscription model, but there will always be a free version, which is also very important to us.
Yeah, some apps in the past have charged just so much. And for just the average person, it can be really expensive, but especially for those on a fixed income, it's just unfeasible.
Yes. And as we in the autoimmune community know here that, we have to be mindful of our costs. The medical conditions can cost a lot. So I really appreciate that you guys have thought this through and been so mindful about it. A quick question, can non-disabled people or people without a diagnosis join Dateability, or is this for just people that have either are disabled or have a chronic illness?
Anyone can join. We really thought this through at the beginning of our plans. We want to be a totally inclusive app, and that includes non-disabled people. We have pretty strict values and guidelines for respect. So as long as someone is respecting our users, they can be on the app. I think that there are a lot of people out there who don't have an issue with a disability. There's people like my sister who have just been exposed to disability for so many years that it's really a very neutral thing to them. So we really welcome everyone.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, Joe, which one did you guys come up with this together, or how did it happen?
So, Jacqueline has been disabled for a decade now. Has it been a decade?
15 years.
Wow, time flies. But so she's been disabled for 15 years, and we lived together in Denver. So we've experienced postgraduate life together once we were both out of school. And I've watched her go through these experiences time after time, these negative dating experiences where she would be rejected solely due to her disability. And it was so frustrating to watch because she's incredible. She's compassionate, kind, smart, beautiful on the inside and the outside. And I know that Jacqueline every so often would check the internet, would Google disabled dating apps or dating apps for disabled people. And there were never any that were up to snuff. There were either bots, or it seemed like the users were more predatory, or there were a lot of glitches and bugs. And so nothing ever came from it. And then last November, she made the tough decision to get a feeding tube placed. And I really wondered how that would affect her dating life from an able-bodied person's perspective. Not eating 3 meals a day. A lot of life in Colorado and a lot of dates are focused on outdoor adventures, but those are inaccessible to her. So a lot of her dates were focused on going out to eat, eating at restaurants, grabbing coffee, and that the feeding tube just changed that whole situation. And so I kind of panicked for her as to what her romantic future would look like. And that's when we decided to take matters into our own hands and create Dateability. And we literally started creating it from the hospital room after she was recovering from the procedure.
You guys just raised the hair all over my body here. I just love that. I just felt this wave go over me. I just love that you both agreed and decided to take matters into your own hands. To me, that's all about what being a thriver is, regardless of what the issue is. And I've often heard people say things like, you're so brave for my condition and things like that. And I don't get that, honestly. I don't have another option than to find a solution.
I said the same thing. We actually had this conversation last week. That
about being inspiring, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not choosing to be disabled. Like, it's just my state of being. So there's really nothing brave about that. If someone were to compliment our venture of being an entrepreneur and taking a chance in this really scary world of tech and being a business owner, that I think is brave. But I'm not brave for having a chronic illness. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always say too. I'm like, look, I don't see where there's other choices here. So we have to just do what we have to do. Although I have to say it is inspiring that you guys did take the leap into entrepreneurship. It is very inspiring. All of us who are in my community know it is so easy just to sit on the couch and go, poor me. It really is. And I have to be honest, wrap myself out. There are days that I do that.
Yeah, I would say Jacqueline is inspiring in that way. There are times when I've gone, through lows. There's peaks and valleys for everyone, and I really do enjoy wallowing sometimes. But Jacqueline is not like that, and so her strength and her positive outlook and is inspiring. That she really doesn't do that despite the hurdles that she's had to overcome in the last 15 years. So that is inspiring to me, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think that making my life about what I see as the worst part of it is just a waste of my time. I'm really fortunate that I have a really great mental health and that I just can appreciate the little things. And so I'll always try to look on the brighter side, even when things are really rough.
Yeah, wow. Can I ask a little bit about the diagnosis? This 15 years, that's a long time to be going through something.
Yeah, so I've officially been disabled longer than I was non-disabled, which is really wild to think about. But initially, I was diagnosed with dysautonomia and Ehlers-Danlos, and throughout the years, it really spiraled into a lot of different things like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, trigeminal neuralgia. I have some congenital and genetic defects. So I've spent the last 15 years really searching for answers and for treatments. I've had over 40 surgeries in the last 15 years. So it's really just been a whirlwind of discovering this new body of mine that I wasn't born with or I didn't live in for 14 years. So it's been quite the experience.
Yes, I think a lot in our community can relate to the and reflect on those times when they remember the pre and the current, those switch moments of when that new pathway opened up for you. It was like I remember mine very clearly. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
There's a
amazing.
lot of mourning that goes on. And even disability is very dynamic, and mine especially feels very dynamic, and that it changes constantly. And so, even mourning my state that I was in 2 years ago, it really all changes. But it's, at this point, I don't remember really not being disabled. Um, but I think I just mourn what life could have looked like, and not necessarily what it was, but the potential that I had.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow, it is inspiring. I know you said you don't like to think about it that way, but it isn't. When I talk to other people who have taken these decisions into their own hands and said, let's research, let's do the work, let's find out what's going on. And especially it is very common in our community with autoimmune that you have more than one.
Yeah,
And and
definitely.
and sometimes you can have one and get through that and another one pops up in a different place. Sometimes I feel like with my own diagnoses, it's like medical whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good way to describe it. I think Jacqueline could relate.
Yes.
I know because I could be feeling great for on thing. Oh, I found the solution, and then maybe it works for I don't know a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, a little bit longer or whatever, and then all of a sudden something new happens. I'm like, okay, where'd that come from?
Yeah. Or a
Yeah.
treatment works, but it also causes a different side effect. It's
Oh,
never easy.
don't get me started on that. Okay. The reason I say that is I remember early on with some of the medications, I was having what in my mind worse symptoms with the particular medication I was on than the actual diagnosis symptom. And I
Yep.
actually fired a doctor at that point when we got in an argument. Is like, no, those are side effects. And I said, at this point, they're all symptoms.
Hmm.
And they were pretty critical. I was having loss of eyesight, loss of hearing, loss of short-term memory. I'm like, these are livability factors. So, I
Right.
think I'd rather deal with my long-term skin issues as my symptom of choice if I have a choice. I think the one thing that I've learned to do, and a lot in the community have learned to do, is really speak up and advocate for ourselves and for others. And that's what I appreciated about you guys doing Dateability. I think this is an area that is really overlooked in the medical community. And I want to call it a quality of life issue instead of just, well, let's suppress the symptom issue.
Yeah. And it took me a really long time to learn how to speak up. I always relied on my sister to speak up for me. Like even accessibility issues. There's
even after your heart surgery, when the nurse wanted to give you Tylenol, and I
yeah.
said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
She's in so much pain. Look at her. Tylenol's not going to cut it. My mom was standing right there, but yeah, I think born with that advocacy trait,
Yes.
for sure. And it's very easy for me to speak up for better or for worse. But yeah,
Yeah.
you have grown into it. And I've seen you grow into more of an advocate and be braver and bolder with your
Yeah. I
voice.
think it's easier for me to talk about things as a whole and maybe advocate for other people. With myself, I still get really choked up if I have to either defend myself or try to explain myself. Even, you know, the occasions where people in a parking lot try to remind me that the disabled parking spaces are only for disabled people while I have a placard and a plate. So it's like I get very nervous and I just run away. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I should have said this, 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 this.
You're
And
not alone on that, Jacqueline.
yes.
You're not.
And so, just using Dateability as a space to talk about my story and my life has been really great practice.
Fantastic. It is. And the one thing I think is important for all of us in the community is to share our stories, because it is a beacon of hope. It's a beacon of, okay, I'm not alone. Oh my goodness, I can stop beating myself up for that, not having the right quippy comeback to that idiot over there. All of those things that we go through when a lot of times, with an invisible, most of the time they are invisible to the, quick glance. It's really tough when you get these people out there who just somehow think they know better what your life is about. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes I've gotten one comment from a parent of a child with a disability, and that hurt the most, because I was like, you should know that disabilities don't always look one way. But it's been a real experience learning how to open my mouth and speak my voice and have people hear me. And I think with Dateability, I spent a lot of years just confiding in my close friends and family about my dating experiences. And well, because frankly, it's was pretty embarrassing to be rejected so many times, and especially over something that I have no control over. But once I really started speaking about my experiences, so many people relate to it, which is bittersweet. I hate that we live in such an ableist world where people can't look past a disability or a chronic illness, but it's really nice to feel not so alone.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing that you guys are doing with Dateability is allowing accessibility to love and community and companionship, and letting people understand that that takes many, many forms. I just love that idea that it's not just what the rom-com that we all might be weeping over at this time of year, seeing a rom-com or something. It's not always that. So I really appreciate this. What are some things that you have learned? I want to jump into the entrepreneurial side, because I think a lot of people, when they get a diagnosis and they're moving through this, have ideas like this. And maybe not as Dateability, but only if they had this, or wow, I could really use that. I want to talk about what was it that, I mean, I just don't think everybody always has the courage to jump in and say, well, I'm frustrated by it, I'm going to solve it. A lot of times we wait and say, I wish somebody would. What is it about you guys that made you guys go? I know you talked about your sister, but there's got to be more to it.
I do think that neither of us would have done it alone. I mean, I wouldn't have. I think it's really important that Dateability is led by somebody who's a part of the disability chronically ill community. So as an able-bodied person, I wouldn't have created Dateability on my own. But I think Jacqueline, and I'm speaking for you, but I don't think you would have done it alone either.
No.
I think we both complement each other very well. And so what one lacks, the other one typically has. And so together we had the courage just to kind of take a leap of faith and do this. I had been laid off because of COVID budget cuts from my prior job. So I was unemployed at the time as well, and getting frustrated and needing something to focus my energy on. And I was like, let's just do this. And so we kind of, like I said, planned it in the hospital, but I don't think we would have done it individually. I think our team and having each other is really like the differentiating factor.
Yeah, we come from a very entrepreneurial background with our father who has always shown us that it's really important to put your heart into everything you do. He immigrated from Argentina in the 80s to start this whole new life to support his family, and has really shown us what hard work can get you. And even just like passion projects, he opened up a coffee shop, and although we shut it down a couple years later, he showed us that we could do it, and that with support anything can happen. And so we got a lot of support from our family, just to get the ball rolling. And with ideas, we always bounce ideas off of our parents. And so it was really just like a real passion project that turned into something big, and we hope it just keeps growing.
Yeah, talk about passion project. I mentioned to you when we first met was my irrational passion is what my friends call it, is the autoimmune hour. And I'm always just in wonder and awe of people who are able to find the gifts and find the things that need to be done out of adversity. If only this was there, as I mentioned before. What are some things that you would tell people if they're in that stuck of someone else should do it? What kinds of encouragement can you give people, or tips can you give people to say, you guys took the leap?
I think if you can't do it alone, find someone who can do it with you. I think a lot of times people feel like they have to carry the weight of the world on their own shoulders, and it's really easy to find someone that can help and do it with you. And some other advice, more practical advice, is to do your research. You don't know what you don't know, so try to know everything. Make sure you interview people really well if they're going to help you, and take that leap. We really, neither of us had any experience in tech. Alexa's a lawyer, and I have a background in psychology, and we had no idea where to start. So we just Googled, and we're here a year later with a great app and a growing community.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. We need to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk some more to Alexa and Jacqueline Child and their new app called Dateability. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and we're here with Jacqueline Child and Alexa Child, and they're the co-founders of Dateability. It's an app, as you could tell, and it's also available online as a computer-based, as they mentioned earlier. I love that idea that it's the accessibility part of it. And one of the things that I want to encourage people to do, oftentimes when you have an invisible illness or chronic illness, I hear this, many people in my community say, my work life changed. I couldn't do what I had been doing. And what can I do now? And I find that I'm really intrigued by these two young entrepreneurs here who have taken the leap of faith to do this and create a place for themselves, and taking that opportunity and solving something that's very needed. And that's all about connection and community. And one of the things I wanted to check in with you guys about is, as you're growing the community, are you finding other opportunities out there? I mean, I find Dateability an interesting way to connect, let alone, we'll say, as a love interest. But what kinds of other opportunities are you finding out there for for people as you go through your experience here of starting Dateability?
I think we've found just a really strong community of people who are fighting for the same ideas we are. Um, we're finding that people really want companionship and love and whatever form that comes in. And so we've really built a strong community of people who support us and support Dateability. You know, we're a new app, and so there's always room for improvement in our app. And it's really great to see people reach out with feedback, and we take all feedback really seriously, and we consider any suggestions people have. And so we love when people are honest with us in ways that we can improve. And it's just been a really supportive experience.
And I will say I touched on expanding earlier, and we, also realize the importance of platonic relationships as well. A lot of people, have a hard time finding friends with shared experiences or empathy for what they're going through and understanding. And so upon expansion, in 2023, we will be adding a friendship logic as well. So somebody could put that they're looking for a romantic relationship, or they're just looking for friendship. And we're really hoping that that gives the disability and chronically ill communities, another form of connection and community.
Oh, I love that. I think that is so important. I remember with the beginning of my diagnosis, my world narrowed very quickly and it became very small. And on the website, the tagline is one of the taglines is "You are not alone." And to me, I think that's the critical thing, is to find people who either have gone through it or who have an understanding and empathy about it, because it's really hard and gets very tiring explaining ourselves all the time.
Yeah, I think it's really important to find people with these shared experiences, or who just understand, there's times where people have to bail because their illness is flaring up, and it can be really uncomfortable to have to explain that to people. And just finding people that understand you and your situation is really important, because chronic illness in itself is isolating. And when you add just all these ableist expectations and tendencies, it really adds a layer of isolation and frustration.
It does. I wanted to comment. Oftentimes, I found that a lot of them were not done from malice. They were just done from a complete lack of understanding. I remember early on, I had food sensitivities, and so I have to be very careful of what I eat. And yet you would, oh, but it's so and so's birthday, and it's just one bite of cake or something along those lines. And I found that that was one of the things that I was always trying to. I didn't like the word educating people, but in my mind, it felt like why am I always having to educate people? If
Yeah.
they say no, thank you. Just say okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the exhausting parts of having a chronic illness, is just constantly feeling like you have to explain yourself, and just making people aware that chronic illness and disability are really intricate, and no one's the same. And while you might have a friend who has lupus, that doesn't mean their lupus presents the same as mine. And so it's really juggling, educating, and having to get all that unsolicited advice from people that you've either tried, or two, makes no sense. So it's really really hard to find people who understand. So we hope that Dateability brings people together in any way.
Well, I love that you're building a community. That is amazing. And as you think about the future, I love that you're adding the friendship feature. But as you're thinking about your future, because I just see you guys as rising stars here in the invisible illness world, what are you guys seeing for yourself beyond Dateability? To me, it's a beautiful launching place, and you guys, I'm so inspired by both of you.
Thank you. We really want Dateability to be one of the mainstream dating apps, just like Bumble, Hinge, Tinder, Match.com, OkCupid. We really want Dateability to have that name recognition and that user base. And we also really want to use Dateability's platform to advocate for certain policies and equality. You can talk more about that if you'd like.
Yeah, I really hope that we're able to find the platform to advocate for marriage equality, as there really is no marriage equality without disabled people being able to marry without losing their benefits. And so it's really important to us that we use our voice for good and fight for universal health care and just the disability community as a whole. This community is so large, it's the largest minority, and we're often the forgotten ones. We talk about inclusion a lot in the recent years, and we were talking about sexual orientation and race and xenophobia. And I think that the discrimination against disabled people is not talked about for whatever reason. We are really often left in the dust to fight for ourselves. And so if we can come together and get people who have these powerful voices to speak on our platform, I think we can make a really big difference.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the raising awareness of what it's like, because anybody can be here in any moment. I remember I was great one day, and the next day I woke up and I was unable to move. And I don't think people realize how fragile life is and how important it is that we stand up for everyone who's experiencing these life-changing things that can happen in any moment. I'm really passionate about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, most people will age into disability. And I mean, like, I watched my sister one day, she was not disabled. And then essentially the next day she was, just like you said, with your experiences. And so when people ask me if I'm able-bodied, in interviews for Dateability, I always say I am today, but I really have no idea what the future holds for me. Especially like we're in a pandemic and the thing health is ever evolving, and I'm very aware of that. But I think a lot of people are not aware. Maybe the only reason I am aware is because of my sister. And so people are not aware that you can really become disabled at any moment in time.
Yeah, and I think that people aren't even aware of the sheer number of people who already have a disability. Um, you know, not everything has to be looked at towards the future, but like care about the people who are here now. 25% of the United States, the adults in the United States have a disability. And that is a huge number, and it affects every part of our lives. And so just realizing that there's this huge community that needs a lot of support and a lot of backing is really important. And by creating Dateability, we get a lot of comments like, oh, this is really niche, and how many users could you actually possibly get? And we could get a lot of users. 25% of the United States has a disability. That is huge. Comes out to around 61 million people. And it's just a huge community that it's really sad and crazy that we're the first people to really make a legitimate app for disabled people to find love. And we're glad to be the first ones to do it, even if it took a really long time to get here.
I mean, there's an app for farmers, there's an app for LGBTQIA plus community, there's an app for celebrities. Why shouldn't there be an app for disabled and chronically ill people?
I think what comes to mind is oftentimes we're siloed by our label.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unfortunate that our voices are spread out over what is your diagnosis, and that's the label you fall into, and that's supposedly what you advocate for, instead of advocating for all who are struggling with their health or physical disability, mental disability, all of those things. And I love that you guys are bringing this idea of, if we all talked about the issues are pretty much the same as finding love, finding community, the things that we want to have in our life, the things that we deserve to have in our life. I love that you're bringing everyone together so the voice can be more powerful instead of being siloed by what is your diagnosis.
Yeah. And going off of that, it was really important to us that we not only include physical disabilities and chronic illnesses in the app, and that we really welcome people with intellectual disabilities and psychiatric disabilities, as well as non-disabled people. But we never want to pigeonhole people and force someone to only date someone with this diagnosis as you. So it was important that we have a wide variety of people because we're all very different, but at the end of the day, a part of this community that really deserves happiness and the same basic things as other people get.
Yeah, absolutely. We all want, all I think are human at that point. As you broil it down to that, what are we? We're all human and we want the same things, love, companionship. And I just find it wonderful that you guys have taken the leap to bring this to the forefront. Um, any thoughts that you have to help people who are saying, I am part of that community, and I've been siloed because I only talk about my disability, my diagnosis. Um, what tips do you have for people that, all this experience to how to speak for themselves or advocate and possibly start a community themselves?
I think finding the people who will listen, it's not quantity, it's about quality. And you can have a really loud voice and have no one listen to you. But if you could just have a few people listen to you, I think that that could make all the difference. And I would just say, don't stop speaking. Even if you think no one's listening, someone's listening. And it's really important that people keep talking, keep doing things that they're passionate about, and just having a voice for themselves.
I think the more we speak about it, the clearer we get on what are the real issues and what are the things that we can change now and what are the things we continue to push forward for. And I know when you're saying don't give up, multiple times I've been doing this since 2015, 400 plus episodes. And I have to be honest with my community, there are times when I'm like, why am I doing this? This is really hard work. It takes a couple of days out of my week to do the show and everything that's behind the scenes. And then I'll get an email from someone and it will be that, Sharon, you changed my life, or I sure appreciate that you had this guest on the show. I felt for once that I wasn't alone, or I'd finally been heard, and you know, for me, those are the moments that just make it all worth it. That I start back up and say, okay, even though I'm only in my mind, I got that one email. I Somebody's life was enhanced by all the work that I'm doing. I think that's important to me.
We can relate. There have been times, Jacqueline's disabled and this can get, it's time consuming and can be exhausting. I'm still working my day job. So it's juggling both of those things and making sure I'm doing a good job at each. And then we get those emails and it reminds us why we're doing this and that it's worth it.
Yeah, that is. Oh my goodness. Well, we're just about out of time. Share any final thoughts that you have about.
We really encourage everyone to join Dateability. And although we don't have the official friendship logic up and running, we always welcome people to join and just put in their bio, I'm only looking for a friend right now. It's really important that our community connects with one another. And especially during a time of the pandemic where a lot of people are feeling just even more isolated than we normally are, that companionship that's online it can be really meaningful and powerful. And so just join Dateability. We hope that Dateability makes people aware that disability is neither good nor bad. It's just neutral. It's something that we really can't control. And what we can control is being really kind to others, being empathetic, opening ourselves up. And to live a full life, I do believe you have to be vulnerable. So take that chance and open up to someone, and you never know what can come out of that. You could find the love of your life, or you could find your best friend. We just hope that Dateability really fosters a great community and helps people, enhances people's lives in all ways.
Well, friendship, community, and love always enhance people's lives for sure. It's Dateability. How do we find it? Can we go to the App Store, or how do we find it?
Yeah, it's Dateability app. If you go to the App Store or Google Play, just type in Dateability. Instagram is at Dateability app. And our webpage is dateabilityapp.com. To find out more, info.dateabilityapp.com. And we have a Facebook as well.
I assume is Dateability as well for
yes.
Facebook.
Sorry, yes. Our Facebook page is Dateability as well. And our users are, we've been launched less than 2 months, but every day our community is growing, and we're really hoping that in 2023 it really goes viral.
Oh,
in a good way.
Yes, in a good way. That's true. I have to choose my words carefully these days when it comes to that.
Right. Thank you, Jacqueline, for bringing that up, because yes, we always have to think about the double meanings of things these days, don't we? My goodness. Well, I'm so thankful that I heard that interview of you guys doing, and congratulations on getting picked up in different news services and things, because I think it really is an important issue beyond, as you said, Jacqueline, finding the love of your life, finding new friends, finding people who understand, finding people who can just be there. Sometimes, as I was going through the worst of my healing process, it was nice just to have somebody listen. I didn't have to have them have the answers. They didn't have the answers, but just somebody who sat next to me and was willing to listen is so critically important in all of our lives, whether we're disabled, chronically ill, or perfectly fine at that moment.
Yeah. And I think, I'm very lucky to have my sister who we live together, we work together, we are best friends. So I feel like I always have a listening ear. So yeah, we're very grateful that maybe we can provide that same relationship for someone else.
Thank you. Alexa, any final thoughts from your point? And then
oh gosh, pressure's on. No, like Jacqueline said, join Dateability. Everyone, a reminder that you are worthy, and that when life seems to be tough and it seems like no one understands you, there are people out there. They might not be in your general vicinity or in your close group of family and friends, but there are people out there who understand what you're going through and have a lot of compassion and want the best for you. So for everyone to remember that and not let go of that.
An interesting question just popped through my mind as a final, not a final thought, but just a question tangentially. Is this available worldwide, or is it currently just in the US, or how?
It's available in North America, so the US, Canada, and Mexico, but we want to expand geographically as soon as possible. So Australia, New Zealand, parts of Latin America, and then parts of Europe are really on our chat, which is a very exhaustive list, but those are our priorities. We've had a lot of feedback from people internationally asking when we'll be available in their country. So it is very important to us, but privacy laws are different and it's very technical. So we first launched in North America, and we're hoping to be available worldwide or more globally as soon as possible.
I just wanted everybody to know that, and stay tuned. If you're in a community where it's not yet available, stay tuned and continue to support them. Join their social media and continue to support them so they can get the power base behind the movement. I think it's an important movement, inclusion for all, regardless of your diagnosis. I'm going to say it. I guess I'm an old lady who can say it. I'm just so proud of you two for taking on this journey and this mantle and running with it. I am. It's much needed. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's Jacqueline Child and Alexa Child, and they are the co-founders of Dateability. And as you've heard, it's a wonderful site for finding the love of your life and communities and friends. And so stay tuned for that friend part. But as Jacqueline encouraged us to do, join now, even if you're just looking for friendship. Or I shouldn't say just looking for friendship. If you're looking for friendship and community, because this has been an isolating 3 years for many, many of us in the thriving our thriving group here. It's been very isolating.
Yes.
So everyone, go to dateability.app, check it out, download it onto your smartphones, and join me next week for another brand new episode. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.